Hi everybody, Steven here. If you ever wondered, hey, how can I convert my vSphere 8 environment into a full-blown VCF 9 environment? Well, that's what we're going to cover in this video, and I'll point out a couple of things that you need to know along the way. We'll see you in a bit. Thanks for sticking around. So in this video, we're going to talk about how do I go from vSphere 8 all the way up to a VCF 9 environment. So I want to convert my VCF 8 environment into VCF 9 management domain. And there's a couple things I want to talk about in the process, but before we get there, I'd like to do a shout out. Thank you very much for those of you who support the channel by subscribing and leaving comments and sharing. Really appreciate that. And I can't forget, thank you very much for those of you that done super thanks. Again, those are another way that you can actually support the channel, but that's totally up to you. Now, in this video, as I mentioned, we're going to go through going from vSphere 8 to vSphere VCF 9. Now, I just want to cover a couple things here real quick. Anybody doing the certification, you want to make sure you understand the difference between an import, a converge, not convert, a converge, and an upgrade, right? What we're going to be doing is going from version 8, we're going to upgrade, an in-place upgrade of vSphere 8 to vSphere 9, okay? And I've actually got a video on that already, but we'll walk through that as well. Then, once it's at version 9, then we do a thing called a converge, okay? Think of it like convert, because technically that's what you're doing. You're going to convert your vSphere 9 environment into a VCF 9 management domain. That's the key there. vSphere 9, and we're going to make a vSphere management domain. An import, which I've done videos on, is something different. It's vSphere being imported into a workload domain. So that's different, and I've got videos on that. So anyways, you're going to want to stick around for this one. So why don't we get started? Okay, everybody. So I'm already connected to my vSphere environment. There's my vCenter server, sa-vcsa-01.vclass.edu. There's the version, it's 803, and there's the build. You'll see I got a single cluster with some hosts in it. If I click on one of my hosts, you'll see again it's 803, that the host I got, and the build for that host. Great. You'll notice that this cluster is actually using images and not baselines. Baselines aren't supported in version 9, okay? And then there is my vCenter server appliance. And this is the part you got to wrap your mind around. My vCenter server appliance is a VM that it's managing itself. So it's up managing these 4 hosts, and that appliance is a VM on those hosts, almost a chicken and egg thing. So the first step before we can get to VCF is we have to do an in-place upgrade of your vSphere environment to version 9. So the first place we're going to start is our vCenter server appliance. So let me go into here, and I'm going to make sure you got backups and all that stuff before you do any of this stuff. So I'm going to go into here. Let me go to my vCenter server. I already downloaded the ISO for 9.0.1. That's the vCenter server ISO. So I'm going to double click on that. I'm going to say open. And then I'm going to go through the GUI installer. I'm on Windows, and I'm going to say install. So I'm doing the GUI install. Now, here I'm going to get a choice of doing a new install or a restore. I'm not doing any of those. I'm going to do an upgrade. So I'll click on that. Now, this is a 2-stage process. That's what this is saying. What it's going to do is you got your original vCenter server here. Then you're going to deploy a secondary one, all right? And you're going to assign a temporary IP to that. Once this is deployed, it will then copy the network configuration from the original over to the new one. Once it's been copied, it will shut down the original, and it will basically start up the new one with the new IPs, the host name, all that, the original IP, the original host name. So this, obviously they shut this one down because you don't have a conflict. So, and then that will be your new vCenter server. The original, they don't delete. It's still there. It's powered off. It's up to you to delete it. So, and they do that as a precautionary thing. So great, that's our process. I'm gonna go next. I'm gonna read the license agreement again. Select you agree with it. Go next if you do. Now it's asking me connect to the source. What's the vCenter server appliance that we're replacing? So mine is sa-vcsa-01.vclass.edu. Remember, you got to have forward and reverse lookups for all this stuff, and I'm on port 443. So it's going to connect to it. It's going to come back and show me a thumbprint. Beautiful. Come on, there we go. Actually, sorry, I'm thinking of something else. Now it's saying the source appliance. What are we replacing? Notice it's already filled that in, and the port's already filled in. Then here is the single sign-on username. It's assuming vSphere administrator at vSphere.local, but yours might be different, but in my environment, it's correct. So it's going to ask me the password for that account and the password for the root user. Then it's asking you the host or vCenter that manages this. Who manages this vCenter server VM? Well, it manages itself. So this is why I've got this filled out. And again, the authentication for that, right? So again, chicken and egg thing. You got to get your mind wrapped around that. I'm going to go next. It comes up with a thumbprint, confirm all that, you go accept. Now, come on, once it does this, it's going to say, where are you going to deploy this, all right? Well, this again, it's going to get the part, I'm deploying it to itself, right? So it's the vCenter server is managing some hosts, so I'm going to pick that. That's what I've got selected for mine, okay? It didn't come up with this. I already typed it in and the browser's caching it. And I'll type in my password as well. So the browser cached all this because obviously I ran through some tests here as well. Let me go next. Again, it comes up, says, hey, this is the thumbprint. So now it's saying, oh, okay, I'm going to connect to that vCenter server, and there's a data center. What folder do you want me to spin up this new secondary one, or this second vCenter? I'll put it in that folder. What cluster do I want to put it on? What host? I'll pick the first host here. I'll go next. Now, what do you want to call the name of the VM? I'm going to get an error here. Watch this. I'm going to type in site a-vCenter server appliance-1. I'm going to put in the root password for that new appliance. And I'm going to confirm that password. Now I'm going to get an error. Watch this. Next. It says, hey, there's a VM there that's already had that name. And I showed you that. That's the name of my appliance. So I'm going to call it V9 for version 9. Okay? So great. I'll go next. And it does a little spinny thing. Now it's saying, hey, what size do you want to deploy it? It's got to be the same size or greater, right? Makes sense, you know? So mine's small. I'm going to leave it at small. That's fine. With data store, again, I'm going to put it on the vSAN data store that's on that cluster. Maybe not using vSAN, put on appropriate data store. And I enable thin disk mode, which is kind of, doesn't really make sense since it's vSAN, but it doesn't really matter. I'm going to leave it enabled at thin. I'm going to go next. Now it's asking me what port groups do I want it connected to. And this is one of the reasons why I specified it, because it gives me all the port groups here, again, that I could plug this VM into. I'm going to put it on my management network. Perfect. Now, what I have to assign that temporary IP. You see it right here, temporary IP. Okay, and I'm going to use IP4, and it's going to be static. All right. Apparently, if you're using IP4 and IP6, doing this, your IP6 will be removed, and then you'll just be IP4, and you'll have to reapply IP6 afterwards. So I'm going to assign a static address. I already got one here. This address is a temporary address, has to be available, so I want to make sure of that. So I've already got mine here, my subnet mask, my gateway I put in, and then my DNS server. I don't need forward or reverse lookup set for this address. This is temporary. Like I said, it's going to spin up this VM, and then once it's done, it's going to copy everything from the original, then copy over the network configuration, shut down the original, and then this one will get the new network, get the network settings and the host name of the original. That address won't be used anymore. So this looks good. I'm good to go. I'm going to click next. Gives me a summary. I'm going to hit finish. This is phase one. This will probably take about 15 minutes, depending on your environment, because it's going to deploy a VM and then spin it up. So let's let it go through that, and then I'm going to stop the recording. We'll come back when it's done. Okay, so stage one is finished. I don't know, probably took about 20 minutes. I walked away, right? So I'm going to say continue here. And at this point here, I'm on stage 2. So it says upgrade appliances to stage. We already talked about that. We'll go next. Now it's going to connect to the source vCenter server, which it should already know because I typed all that stuff up. So it's doing some pre-upgrade checks. I'll probably pause this and then, because that could take a couple minutes to do. Okay, so that took a few minutes and it comes up with some warnings. It tells me then, again, this new version integrated to Windows authentication is deprecated. Again, you can click on this. And these next other warnings here are talking basically about Update Manager, telling you that your baselines aren't supported and all that stuff, and it won't be copied over. So you may want to, again, do your research, okay? So I'm going to say, okay, close. And then at this point here, select Upgrade Data. Do I want to copy configuration and inventory? It says it's almost about 2 gigabytes of information. It says about 35 minutes. Do I just want to do configuration and inventory, task and events? Or do I want to do configuration, inventory, task, and perform, like everything, right? So this is going to depend on what you want to copy over. I'm going to go with the basics, my configuration and inventory. I don't got a lot, so, but it's saying it's going to take about 35 minutes to do this, and I'll go next. Do you want to join the customer experience improvement program? Totally up to you. I'm going to leave that selected. I'm going to go next. And then it says it's ready to complete. Then it says, I have backed up my source vCenter, all required data from the database, right? So make sure you do that. I didn't do it. Make sure you do that. All right. Hey, I'm done. I'm going to go finish. And it says the source vCenter will be shut down once network configuration is activated on the destination vCenter. Click OK to continue. So I mentioned that already. So this is what they're referring to, is that in place, or sorry, that minimum downtime type of upgrade. So this is going to take about 35 minutes. Hey, by the way, if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, here's a good opportunity to click that subscribe button. So we're going to let this go. I'm going to stop the recording or pause it. No use in me recording 40 minutes worth of a progress bar. So we'll see us back when it's done. Well, it's done. So it says stage 2 is complete. Let's click close. Again, we can go to this page here. So let's say close. And then it looks like maybe I got to refresh this thing. Let's actually close the browser down and let's reconnect to my vCenter server. So let's go into here, vSphere client. Maybe the services haven't started yet. Okay, I'm going to log in. Did I make a mistake there? Maybe not. All right. So we'll give it a few seconds. And again, we get the little spinning thing there. So let me click on my vCenter server. You see I'm at version 9.01 now. Hey, that's great. Good news, right? You'll notice, again, there's my VM, my original vCenter server. It wasn't deleted. So if something went bad here, I could always kind of roll back to that, right? So there's the one that I'm actually using right now. So technically, if everything's fine, I can delete this, okay? So I'll leave it alone for now anyways. Actually, you know what? I'm going to delete it. Delete from disk, because I'll need the space, okay? I'm assuming everything's good, so don't do that in production. Make sure everything is fine. Now we need to update the host. There's various ways to do the updates. One of the ways is with lifecycle management, vSphere lifecycle management. So I need to import the images. So we'll walk us through that. So let's take a look here. Let's go into Lifecycle Manager, and then I need to basically go into Actions here, import an update, and then I'm going to click on Browse here, and I'm going to go to my, there's my ESXi. It's now called ESX. So I actually already downloaded this. I know it says, actually says ESXi there. It doesn't really matter. I downloaded the depot, the zip depot from Broadcom support, so you'll need that. So let me select that, say Open, and again, it's importing, and it's going to take a few seconds to do that. Maybe a little bit longer. So it says 14 minutes remaining. It's going by pretty quick. 22 minutes remaining, or seconds, actually. Sorry, those are seconds. All right. So I was going to say, it's going by pretty fast for a couple minutes. There we go. So we just got to wait for that to finish up. So it's adding to our repository. I'll probably just pause this till it's done. Okay, so that took about a minute or two. It's done. So now I need to create an image. So let me go into here. I'm going to give it a name. What's the image name? Probably a good idea to call it what it is. So I'll say ESX-9.0.1, and probably a good idea to put the build number in. I don't know what the build number is. It doesn't really matter, so I'll just, whatever. I'm just going to call mine 9.0.1. Put in the build number as well, okay? I'm going to select my version. Again, right there is the one that I just imported, and there's the build number for me. So why don't I put that in there? 0.1.0.249.249, whatever, okay? Again, if this was, if I had any vendor add-ons or any firmware, I could add those. Again, I'm in a nested environment, so it doesn't matter. And no other conditional components. I'm going to basically validate this, and this will take a few minutes, and then I'll save it, okay? And then at that point, we actually see it there. Great. Now that I've done that, Let's go back into my vSphere environment, into inventory. Let me select my cluster. And before the video, I showed you I was using images to manage this. There's the image I'm actually using, right? So I'm going to edit this, and I'm going to go in and select the 9.0.1, right? And then I'm going to say validate. Okay, and then it says compatibility cannot be determined. It can either be because of security patches out of date or compatibility bundles having timestamps. So I'm just going to ignore that for now. And I'm going to save this. Remember, I don't have internet access to Broadcom support because I don't have a license, so it can't validate this stuff. So there we go. So it's checking compliance on my cluster, all right? So we'll give this thing a few minutes to do its thing. It's kind of just checking it. So before it was at version 8.0.3, and now it's going to check and see if everything's compliant with version 9.0.1, and it won't be. Notice it's come out. It says the CPU in the host is not supported by ESXi. You can override this with the force remediate. Yeah, the host that I'm on, my physical host, the CPU inside it, is not supported officially by version 9. Okay, so this is why I'm getting those errors. So I'm going to force it, right? I'm just going to let this finish, check compatibility. I'm going to let that finish. We're at 60%. And there we go. It's done. So it says the host will be rebooted during remediation. Quick Boost is supported on the host. So I'm going to select this. A good idea to run pre-checks for everything. I'm going to basically skip that process just to speed this up. Don't do that in production. Stage all and remediate all. Stage basically means copy the software down there, but don't install it. Okay? And then maybe you'll do that, and then later on, after hours, you could install it, let's say. All right? Or I can just say remediate all. Copy it down, and then install it. Okay? So a lot of times it's good to just to stage it, put it down there, not install it until you're ready to install it. This way you don't have to wait around. So I'm going to remediate all, okay? Now it comes out, gives me the impact. It'll tell me about the impact and stuff. You can read that on your own. Also, it looks like it accepted the foundation agreement by default. I'm going to say start remediation. And this is basically the same kind of stuff that I showed in my lifecycle, my vSphere lifecycle manager video, if you want to watch that. I'm not going to record this because this could take a little while. It's basically what it's going to do. It's going to go in and remediate each host at a time. Okay, and it looks like it's, yeah, so it's going to remediate each host one at a time. It's going to put that host in maintenance mode, remediate it, reboot it, bring it out of maintenance mode, and then it'll repeat the process for the other servers, right? If there's VMs running there, for example, I got a vCenter server running there. I got no other VMs, but if there was a VM there, it would, again, migrate it off that host if DRS is enabled in fully automated mode, okay? So you see right now it's doing host 4. And I'm just going to let this run, and we'll come back and check it out later. Okay. All right. Everything is all done. See, my cluster is now compliant, image compliance. Right. There we go. Everything is good. If I look at my host, I'm running, again, 901 on all of them. Okay. So the next thing now that's the direct upgrade portion is done. So my vSphere environment is now version 9. Oh, by the way, I just want to mention this. Your licensing, you'll need to update your licensing, okay? But because right now it's in evaluation mode. And after this deployment, you have to do your license. I'll remind you at the end. Anyways, I'll talk about that later. So I now need to deploy the VCF installer. And this is where it's going to get a little weird, okay? So I'm going to click on my cluster. I'm going to go into here. Actually, I'm not going to go there. I'm going to right-click. I'm going to say deploy the appliance. And I'm going to say, all right, I've already downloaded the appliance from Broadcom support. This is the VCF installer, but I know it says SDDC Manager because that's what it is. I'm going to say open. I'm going to go next. I'm going to give this thing a name. And you figured I was going to call it VCF installer. I'm not. I'm going to call it site A-SDDC MGR. Okay. What happens is the VCF installer, when I install it on one of the hosts that's going to become part of the management domain, it detects that and says, oh, you know what? I'm going to make myself the SDDC manager. So really the VCF installer is just a service that runs on top of the SDDC manager. So it will detect it's on one of these hosts, and these hosts are going to be part of the management domain, and it will kind of say, oh, I don't actually need to deploy it again. I'm already there, right? That's kind of the idea. All right, so anyways, I'm going to call it the SDDC manager. I'm going to go next. Again, there's the cluster. I'm going to put it on. I'm going to say power on automatically. I'm going to go next. And then you got to wait for the little spinny thing to go through. It will ask you, again, you know, do you agree to the license agreements, yes or no? And obviously, if you don't agree to the licenses, you don't click on that little box, which will come up in a second. So it gives you a summary here. Here's the license stuff I was talking about. I'm going to agree to it. Make sure you read through all that stuff. You know, you want to make sure you know everything. I'm going to go next. What data store? My cluster only has a vSAN data store. Not that it has only a vSAN data store. That's the vSAN data. It's the data store it has. So that's the one I'm going to pick. I'm going to go next. What port group is this going to be on? This will generally be on your management port group. So I've got a port group here called Management Network. So I'm going to pick that. So whatever yours is called, you want to put it on there. I'm going to go next. Now it's asking me for passwords. And I don't care if you see this password because everything gets blown away. So any of you bad actors out there that are saying, hey, I'm going to hack Steve's environment, I don't use these passwords. And this thing gets blown away at the end of this video. Now it's asking me for the host name. This is the weird part. Okay, I'm installing the VCF installer, but I'm going to give it a host name of SDDC manager.vclass.edu. Remember I said it's going to convert itself over? I guess that's a lack of a better term. So I'll leave it at that. What are my NTP servers? I'll pick those. That's, again, my browser saved all this stuff from other videos, so this is the reason why I'm able to select it, but type in your NTP servers. Type in your IP address, okay? You'll type in the subnet that you're on. You'll type in the gateway. You'll type in the DNS, your domain name, and your domain search path as well. I've already got mine all set up. My browser cached all that stuff. And then my domain name servers, my DNS servers. So everything looking good here. Let me just check that. SDDC manager, vclass.edu. That's looking good. I'm going to go next, review, and you go finish. And at that point, you wait for it to deploy. It will boot up, and then you need to go through and set up your depots and stuff. But we'll be right back on that one. Well, it finished deploying. Let's log into it. And again, let me go to SDDC Manager and I'll type in my password I specified during the install. If I can type this morning. It's a different day if you've been watching the clock in the back. I don't know if you can tell or not. Okay, so this is the VCF installer. Again, don't get confused. I thought that was the SDDC Manager. The VCF installer is basically the SDDC Manager. Remember, I installed it on. I installed it on a cluster that I'm converting over to VCF management domain. So it will detect that and convert itself from an installer to the SDDC Manager. So technically speaking, it's the SDDC Manager, but it's just the installer comes up. First thing we got to do is set up our depots. I got videos on this. I don't have a direct connection, so I'm going to have to basically go into here and do my offline configuration. And I've got videos on that. Notice it says must support HTTPS, but I'm using port 80. I got videos on that as well. There's a modification you can make to a file so it will accept it. Again, watch my videos on that one, on setting up the offline depot. Okay, so here we go. There's my offline depot. It's actually initializing the binary database right now. And we'll give this thing a few seconds. So there we go. So notice it said, hey, you got stuff for version 9 and you got stuff for 9.01, right? None of the stuff is downloaded. Well, because I just did the install. So I want to do 9.01, so I'm going to select that. And it's basically going to show me everything here I should download, right? Notice that everything says it's not downloaded. I'm going to select it to say download it. Technically, I could probably just say don't bother downloading the SDDC Manager. I'm just going to select it anyways. And I'm going to say download, and then there we go. See, it's actually requesting it. So what that'll do is it'll download all those binaries, validate them, and then it should come up and say it's downloaded here. I'm going to pause the recording at this point, let it finish, and then we'll continue on. Well, it finished downloading. I guess I could have probably made that faster. I didn't need to download the vCenter server. Didn't need to download the SDDC Manager. So I could have excluded those. But anyways, I'm just kind of used to downloading them all. All right, so we're done. Let's go back to home. And let's say go into the deployment wizard. And we're going to deploy Cloud Foundation now. All right. So again, yep, it's a new deployment, right? And we'll click on continue. Then over here, do we have an existing VCF operations? No, we don't. I just had my vSphere 8 and that was it. Do I have an existing vCenter? Yes, I do. Do I also have, is that vCenter set up with NSX, right? And it's not. So, okay, so I'm going to leave that deselected. I don't have NSX. So you can kind of see over here, it's showing me vCenter is existing and the vSphere cluster is existing. Remember, we're converting my vSphere environment into a VCF environment management domain, okay? I'm going to click next. Now it's going to ask me my version. Yep, 901. I'm going to type in my instance name. I'm going to type in my VCF dash domain. Actually, I'll call it my VCF. Why not? I don't have much imagination. What's the management domain going to be? I'll call it management / domain. Whatever. Okay. Now over here, we go through here. I want to connect VCF operations and automation instances on a different port group or NSX segments. By default, the installer will put it on. So, anyways, let me select this and watch what happens over here on step 3 and 4. What happens when I select that? Boom, they're gone. So step 3 and 4, which is VCF operations and automation, will disappear. What this is saying to me is, hey, we're going to install it on a default port group, the management port group. If you don't want to do that, you want to select this, and then you can install it, let's say, on an NSX overlay network after the fact with APIs. This would be in a situation where maybe you have multiple VCF environments, and you want to stretch a network across those, hence an NSX overlay network, and have your management components of VCF, like VCF automation and operations, sitting on that overlay in case you need to fail it over, right? So I'm not going to bother with that. I'll probably do a separate video on that down the road. So let me remove that. Do I want to do a simple mode install or a high availability? Simple mode basically means with the various components like VCF operations, automations, NSX manager, simple is only going to deploy one node, and that's it. So there's no real redundancy there. The only redundancy is vSphere HA. So if your host fails and the VMs run on it, it can fail over to another host. High availability means it's going to spin up additional VMs, like a cluster, for example, NSX. It'll deploy a 3-node cluster. And therefore, you'll actually have higher availability. Highly recommended that you do this, but again, you could pick this. I'm going to pick this in my lab environment. So I want to auto-generate passwords and retrieve them later on. No, I'm going to type them in manually. And do you want to join the customer experience? So I'm going to leave that. I'm going to go next. Now it's asking me my VCF operations stuff. So how big should the VCF operations appliance be? Extra small, small. I'm going to pick small. Now, what determines the sizes of these appliances? This is where you have to go in and look at config max and say, for example, operations could be like the number of hosts you're managing, all that kind of stuff. So you got to look at that and pick and choose the appropriate size for your environment. What is the fully qualified domain name? Mine's called vcfops.vclass.edu. Again, you'll see it's kind of populating this stuff for me. It's because I've been through this a few times. So it's the browser's kind of cached that. What's my administrator password? I'm going to type in my password here. And I'm going to copy that password, which I consider kind of a bad thing to do. But in case you copy the wrong password, you typed it in wrong, and then you got the wrong password. Now it's asking me for the fleet management. This used to be Lifecycle Manager. What's its fully qualified domain name? And I called mine vcf.lcm.vclass.edu. And I'm going to say use the same password as operations. Now we got this thing called Operations Collector Appliance. What's its fully qualified domain name? I called mine vcfops.collector01.vclass.edu. Okay, so again, not much of imagination. And I'm going to say use the same password. Okay, I'm going to go next. Now this is all about VCF automations. If you don't want to install it, if you want to do this after the fact, you can. I'm going to basically say, yeah, go ahead and install it now. My fully qualified domain name for this appliance, I called it vcfauto.vclass.edu. What's the password for that account? I'm just going to check that. I don't care if you see my password. It gets blown away off the end of this video. Also, it's going to ask you, it says automation requires a single node and a simple deployment. As I mentioned, you're not going to get 3 nodes like a cluster unless you pick high availability. In addition, provide a secondary address to be used when recreating a node for upgrade. So again, it's going to ask me for my node IP, and then it's going to ask me for a secondary one for any type of upgrades. So I've got those there. Now, when it creates VMs, it's asking me here, do I want to prefix the name of the VM do I want to have a prefix on the name of each VM? So I'm going to say VCF Auto for mine. Now, internal cluster cider, VCF automation is very reliant on containers. Internally, it uses a lot of containers like Kubernetes and stuff. This is the internal network here. I don't know the reasons why you would want to change it, but again, you can if you want, I guess. I'm going to go next. Now it's asking me, this is different than a brand new install. Since we're doing a Converge, it says existing vCenter. You indicated that you have an existing vCenter. Enter the name and stuff like that. Great. So I'll put in the name. That's my vCenter server, and I'll put in the root password. Let me paste that in. I did change that. Single sign-on username. Again, mine's administrator vSphere.local, and its password. And I think I got everything right there. I'm going to go next. It comes up. I like this here. So you got to confirm the thumbprint of it, okay? So you want to make sure that's the proper thumbprint for that. Then you got to confirm the confirming of the thumbprint. So, okay. So I'm going to go, so double confirm there. So go confirm, and I go next. Then we just kind of sit back and let the spinny thing do its thing. Now we're on to NSX Manager. Again, the size of the appliance, medium, large, extra large. I talked about config max. You want to look at these things, but generally it's the amount of nodes you're going to be managing and stuff. So I'm going to leave it at the default here. Don't do this in production. Just leave it defaults. Do your research, okay? Now it's going to ask me what is the virtual IP. What's the virtual IP and what's the appliance? So remember, it's going to deploy one appliance, and that's right here, the appliance fully qualified domain name. I call my NSX-vClass.edu. That's the name of the appliance. But what's the virtual IP? So we actually need two IPs. It's like a cluster IP. So one is site a-NSX-mgr. Let's try that again. NSX-mgr.vclass.edu. Okay. Then it's going to ask me about, let's type in these passwords. It's going to ask me about the passwords. Let me just make sure I pasted the right password there. Yeah, okay. And the administrator password. It's going to ask me for the root password and the audit password. There. Now, notice here, NSX9 introduced the capabilities to configure overlay using ESX management of VM kernel networking. The imported vCenter server cluster will be configured to use NSX VLAN transport zones and NSX overlay using your VM kernel 0 adapter. It will not require VLAN back configuration, thus negating the need for you to allocate dedicated IPs. What is it saying there? If you're not familiar with NSX, watch my NSX videos. There's a thing called a tunnel endpoint, and this is how NSX uses these overlay networks, okay? Typically speaking, you'd have some dedicated, probably two, dedicated VM kernel ports, VM kernel 10, VM kernel 11, let's say, for that type of NSX traffic. That's generally how we configure it. But what this is, it's saying, hey, you know what? We can make this easier for you, and we'll let you use NSX overlay can use your VM kernel 0, which is your management one. This to me is more along the lines of, yeah, we'll get you going really quickly here, but you really want to change that after the fact, okay? So it says configure overlay using the management kernel. So, okay, so I'm going to say yes to that, all right? And the reason for they're doing this is, again, you NSX folks out there are probably cringing right now reading this, okay? The reason why they're doing this is just to make it simple to get things up and going. I kind of wish they gave us an option here. No, I want to configure a pool for taps right now, or do this, right? But anyways, I'll probably do a video later on changing that, okay? But anyways, that's my NSX stuff. I'm going to go next. And it didn't like my NSX. I'm glad it's checking this stuff, right? So I'm going to go next. Because you'd hate to be deploying and an hour in, all of a sudden it comes up with an error. So it's checking that. Now it's asking me for the SDDC manager appliance. There is the appliance name and then the administrator's password. That's interesting. Now notice it says here, let's just read through. It says the Cloud Foundation installer appliance is deployed on one of the hosts in the management domain. During deployment, the installer appliance will be converted into the SDDC manager. provide the installer's appliance password, right? Yeah, that's what I typed in. Okay, great. I'm not quite sure if I like that terminology there, but anyways, I'm gonna go next. Here's my I can review it, and I'm gonna go next. And at this point, it's gonna go and it's gonna validate this stuff. Hopefully, everything goes fine. And then once it's finished validating, I'll hit that deploy button. So you'll see security stuff is nuts. So some part of the deployment, it was successful. This will probably take, looks like we're almost halfway through the validations. Here, okay, we're actually beyond that now. We'll see how long it takes. Network configuration. I don't know if that's going to take any time or not. Does it actually go out and ping things? That might take a bit of time. But anyways, let me just pause this recording. We don't need to watch this thing spin around. And by the way, hey, if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please consider supporting the channel. It's simple. Hit that subscribe button. That's one way to support the channel, right? Totally free. Okay, so it failed. This is actually an interesting error here. It says the overlay using NSX management is enabled. The M2 is less than 1700. The recommendation is make sure that you have a minimum of 1700. So the overlay network needs an MTU size of at least 1700, right? Because of it's using a Genie to do encapsulation. So that's something really easy to overlook. So let me show you how I'm going to fix this, right? So let me log into my vSphere environment. Local. Yeah, that's I typed in the wrong password. Okay, I'm gonna type it in wrong here. Oh yeah, wrong password. Okay, I should probably standardize on one password. Okay, so let me go to my distributed switch. Let me look at the settings of the distributed switch. I only got one distributed switch in my environment. If I go to settings, I go edit settings, right under advanced, it's defaulted at 1500 MTU. I'm gonna change this now to 9000. Great. I'm gonna say okay. Now also while I'm here, once I see that, I'm also quite concerned about this. My vMotion and my vSAN network, right? It's probably using 1500. So let me go to each host. Let's go to host 1. Let's now this is not important for that error, but it's kind of a red flag for me, right? If I go to my VM kernel adapter, you'll see I got VM kernel 0 or 1 is for vMotion, VM kernel 2 is for vSAN. So if I edit this, you'll see again. Notice the MTU is 1500. I'm going to set this to 9000, and there we go. And I'm going to do the same thing for vSAN there. I'm going to edit that at 9000. By the way, just don't blindly go in and set these numbers. Your physical environment must support these MTU sizes. Okay, mine does. Mine supports 9000. Just blindly typing it in doesn't make it work. Okay, folks. So you got to check with your networking folks. Is there end-to-end 9000? Okay, I'm gonna repeat this on host 2, 3, and 4, and I'll be right back. Okay, finished. I updated them all. Again, I didn't have to do that for that check, but hey, you know what? It's good. I don't like saying WordPress best practice, but for vMotion and vSAN, you want to have jumbo frames enabled. Let me show you something else a lot of people overlook, because we did an upgrade from version 8 to version 9. Let's look at my distributed switch. Look at the summary. Look at the version. It's version 8. It says an upgrade is available. Okay, so I can actually upgrade that. I'm going to hold off on doing. I'll do that after the fact. But again, I could upgrade this, right click on it and say upgrade and upgrade distributed switch. And I'm going to put it to version 9, right? And I can click on this to show me the differences that's available. I'm going to cancel that. I'm not going to bother doing that right now, okay? Because I don't want it impacting possibly this conversion. Let me go to my installer and let's rerun validations and see what happens, okay? Now, unfortunately, it has to start from the beginning. Wish it would just start right there. It would be nice. But anyways, see you back in a bit. Okay, so we're back. That was a little faster. It went through. Now we got a warning. Warnings are okay. I can acknowledge it, continue on. But if you're curious, what it's saying here, hey, there's a setting in the cluster and lifecycle manager basically saying, hey, the SDDC manager wants us to evacuate powered off VMs when we're upgrading hosts. You've got it set to not to do that. If I go into here in a vSphere, if I go into lifecycle manager, if I go into settings, images, settings. And then in here, under this policy, if I edit, I can say, okay, migrate powered off VMs to suspended VMs on host. And I can save that, and I can rerun my check. Let's do that, and we'll come back and see what happens. Okay, so a couple little interesting things came up, but it's all nice and clean now, which is what I like. At that point, I could also download the JSON file. I'm not going to worry. I'm going to click on deploy. This will probably take, I would imagine, maybe a couple hours or an hour or so to do, but I'm not going to record this. I'm just going to let it run, and we'll come back and see how things work out, okay? See you in a bit. Well, it's done. It took about 4 hours. Actually, it's the next day, to be honest with you, because I had other stuff to do, so I just let it run. I will say, though, it actually, let me close this here. So there's the progress. It actually did kick me out of this interface here, and I had to go back into the SDDC. Notice the link here, vcf-installer-ui/portal/progress view, right? So I had to go back into this link specifically, right? And then you can actually see it's done. Again, I can pull up the list of the tasks here. I can go full screen. Voila, all right? So now if I go into my VCF for operations, if I log into that, everything should be done. I should have VCF operations installed, obviously, because I'm logging into it. I shall also have VCF automation also installed. Let's go into fleet management lifecycle. And then from there, you can see there's VCF operations. It's a new deployment. You see the, again, automation is a new deployment. The rest of the stuff hasn't been installed. I have videos on that. If I click on components here, we can see them at 901. Okay, great. What else? The next thing you need to do, and I can't demo this, I don't have licenses, but hopefully soon, maybe hopefully in a week as of this recording. But anyways, the next thing you would have to do, you'd have to go into license management here, and then you'd have to do your registration. Once you've done that, then you need to assign your licenses, and then you can look at your usage. Okay, I can't demo that. I don't have licenses. I'm still on the VMUG 90-day stuff, right? Crossing fingers, all that stuff gets resolved. I hear they're making some great progress on that. What else? Let's take a look at NSX, because I thought that was interesting. We'll just take a quick look there. Where is it? There's my NSX manager. Oops. Let's try that again. There's my NSX manager. I'm going to log in as the local account. And we've already seen vCenter. vCenter's at version 9. We've already seen that. I'm going to skip this. I'm going to go to the bright mode because like that. Anyways, let me go to system. Let me go to fabric. Let's go to hosts. There's my cluster, site A cluster 01. You'll notice it's set up for VLAN and overlay. Host 1, 2, 3, and 4. Excellent. There's my TEP address. My tunnel endpoint 172.20.10.51. So now if we look at my host, let's actually log into my vSphere environment. Let's log into that. And if I look at my host here, if I go to VM kernel configure, networking, VM kernel settings, you'll see I've got VM kernel 0 management. VM kernel 1 is my vMotion. VM kernel 2 is my vSAN. Excellent. I got VM kernel 50, NSX Hyperbus. That's for like containers, internal networking. Where are my taps? Normally I should see NSX here. I do not. It's actually utilizing, there's the IP. So it's actually utilizing this management interface. I'll do a video on how to change that. You're going to want to do that. Any NSX person looking at this now will go, kind of cringe. Anyways, that's it. That's the process, folks. I hope you found it useful. Hey, please consider supporting the channel by subscribing. Really appreciate it. Leave any comments and questions down below. Share the video. All that stuff helps support the channel with the YouTube analytics. And if you got any suggestions for videos, please leave them down below. I'll do my best. I'm really busy these days, and my hardware's limited. But anyways, we'll see you in the next one. Thanks very much. Have a great day.